here today. 37 illegal firearms that were either purchased or seized are off the streets of New York City. For every gun bought, a detective had to risk it all on behalf of the people of the 5 boroughs. This is a prime example of the NYPD's precision policing, focusing on those responsible for trafficking guns and causing violence in the city. This is a success made possible with the partnership of the Queens District Attorney's Office. I want to thank the investigators and undercovers for their hard work and dedication to keeping the city safe. Jack Ryan will now share the details of this tremendous case. Jack.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. I'm here this morning on behalf of District Attorney Richard Brown to announce the arrest of 2 Queens natives, Jaron Devlin, age 32, and Kira Reynolds, age 29. They've both been arrested for multiple sales of weapons and possession of weapons. During this year-long interagency investigation, Mr. Devlin sold 27 loaded firearms to undercover police officers, and he's been charged with appropriate counts. Ms. Reynolds sold 3 loaded firearms also to undercover officers, and she's been charged with 3 counts of sale plus possession. Ms. Reynolds faces up to 22 years in prison, and Mr. Devlin faces up to 190 years in prison. Mr. Devlin has been held on $500,000 bail, over $250,000 cash, and Ms. Reynolds has been charged with set bail at $100,000, over $50,000 cash. These defendants didn't care who they sold these guns to. They didn't know they were selling it to police. They didn't care. They didn't care who these weapons were sold to. They didn't care how these weapons were going to be used. They were in this for the money, and that's all they cared about. If an innocent civilian, an innocent person, was murdered as a result of their actions, that was not what they cared about. So every gun that the police department took off the street, every gun like this and the others that you see here before you, every gun that was taken off the street in this case, every bullet that was taken off of the street in this case, likely could have saved that of an innocent person. I want to commend the work of the New York City Police Department, the FID. Their work is probably among the most dangerous work that a policeman can do. The undercover purchase of a weapon, knowing that you're dealing with someone who's armed and someone who at any moment could decide to rip you off. We can all recall tragedies where that's occurred. This type of long-term investigation is what helps make the city safe. Gun violence is something that we've had to deal with a long time. Gun violence in Southeast Queens is something we've dealt with a long time. These 2 preyed on Southeast Queens. So I commend the police officers for their courage and their fortitude in doing this. I also want to thank my colleagues in the police department and my colleagues in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office who assisted in this investigation. I also want to thank those people in the Queens DA's office that are with me here today and others who could not be here. I want to thank ADA Mike Whitney and Kevin Ramnarain of our Career Criminal Major Crimes Bureau, and Karen Friedman, the coordinator of our trial division. And my office, again, thanks everyone for their participation in this, and we intend to see that these defendants do every day in jail that they deserve. I'd like to introduce Inspector Richard Green, who will tell you the details of the investigation.
Thank you, Jack. Again, introduce myself. I'm Richard Green. I'm the commanding officer of the Gun Violence Suppression Division. I'd like to bring your attention to some of my team. There's Deputy Inspector Brian Gill, commanding officer of the Firearms Suppression Section, Captain Corabell, Lieutenant Donovan, and most importantly, I'd like to speak about the lead investigator, Detective Ryan Foy, whose unrelenting investigation led to these seizures that you see here today. Again with us is Sergeants Matt Griffin and Eric Francis, who are out there every day with the detectives completing this case. Also to my left, ADA Mike Whitney and Kevin Ramnarain, who on a daily basis interacted with our detectives to build the best possible case for prosecution, and of course Jack Ryan, who spoke before. So this case was initiated back in July of 2017 through a police department source of methodology. During the duration of this 21-month case, we utilized many tactics to ensure the safety of our undercover officers and ensure that, in fact, we were taking in all the guns that were coming up through the iron pipeline, a term we hear way too often, these weapons hailing from down south, coming up the 95 corridor into New York to do untold devastation and havoc like the DA was speaking, or without concern about havoc that may be wrought by these weapons. Specifically, I want to bring your attention to two individual weapons, an AR-15, which you could see at the end of the table, and another assault-style weapon, which was seized with over 117 rounds of ammunition. Those weapons are capable of firing these multiple shots and creating a very bad situation in a short period of time. The investigation took place in the St. Albans, Jamaica area of Queens, in a very residential area, wrought with families and children and community members that could be harmed very gravely by weapons of this nature. So again, I want to commend my team for seeing this investigation through, and it wouldn't be, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the brave actions, daily actions of the undercover officers. For obvious reasons, they can't be here today, but their brave actions result in just these type of cases. Thank you.
Take some questions. Tony?
Yeah, Tony.
Iron Pipeline, the source, what proportion of these guns were stolen, or have you been able to trace the sources of them?
The investigation is still ongoing. Tracing out all the weapons is part of that, but right now we do know that there are 4 weapons that were sourced from pipeline states, South Carolina and Virginia. As part of a follow-up investigation, we will continue to see where all these weapons came from and the methodology in which they came up here to New York City, and continue our investigations to see if there's any other prosecutions.
Questions on this case?
Okay.
Okay.
Take a minute and recess, and we'll discuss the full list.
Put your seal mine.
Take care. Nice job. Okay. Nice job.
It's an honor to meet you.
Oh, you're going to put them each up separately? I thought you put them all together. You just told me. Good afternoon. I'm Chief Terry Monahan, Chief of Department, and I'm joined by Deputy Chief Kevin Maloney, Commanding Officer of the Force Investigation Division. The information I'm about to provide regarding last night's officer-involved firearms discharge is preliminary, as the investigation is still ongoing. I want to begin with a little context. Prior to our firearms discharge incident, the fire department responded to the same location, 1616 Grand Avenue, 4th floor in the Bronx, at approximately 10:50 p.m. to assist a tenant who called claiming his front door was locked and his apartment was on fire. FDNY forced the door open and determined the apartment was not on fire. Then they left the location. At about the same time, the NYPD received 2 911 calls regarding the same tenant, who was reportedly threatening neighbors and banging on doors with a large stick. That's a large stick you saw up on the screen a few minutes ago. At approximately 11 p.m., 2 uniformed police officers from the 4-6 precinct arrived at the 6-story residential building and were escorted by the super to that same subject's apartment on the 4th floor. The officer was wearing a body-worn camera, and it was activated for the incident. I viewed this footage last night at the scene, and I can tell you that upon knocking on the now unsecured door, it opened, allowing the officers to observe the subject standing a few feet away. The subject was holding a large kitchen knife, which is pictured up here, in one hand, and what appeared to be a full-size broom handle wrapped in black tape in the other hand. The uniformed officers gave numerous commands to drop the weapons. When the subject did not comply, one officer deployed his taser, striking the subject, causing him to fall to the ground inside the apartment. As the officers moved inside the apartment to disarm the suspect and take him into custody, he suddenly jumped to his feet and charged at the officers from a short distance after grabbing, again, the knife and the broom handle. The officers exited the apartment, but the subject was still advancing quickly towards them. At that point, one of the officers discharged his service weapon 4 times at the direction of the suspect, striking him in the chest. The officers immediately requested an ambulance to respond to location. The suspect was transported to Bronx Lebanon Hospital, where he was pronounced dead at 11:46 p.m. The officers were not injured during the incident and were taken to an area hospital for observation, where they were later released. We will continue to share new information from this ongoing investigation as it becomes available. And I will take any questions you have in the back.
What can you tell us about this man that was killed? Was it a call for an emotionally disturbed person? Any age or?
It was not a call for an emotionally disturbed person. It was a call for a person causing a disturbance in the building, banging on the super's door with a large stick, threatening the security and threatening other members in the building with this stick.
And this was a shelter?
This is it's a building that serves the how's that word go? Services for the underserved. So it could be a whole different group of people can be in there. It could be people with substance abuse problems, homeless problems, HIV, and/or mental illness. Right there.
Was the person who called for the FDNY call the same person?
Yes, he is. He called for FDNY. It appears that he wanted to get back into his apartment. So he had FDNY open his door. Ashley.
When you say, I just want to be clear, have you dealt with him in prior instances, either as an ADP or as a suspect in a crime? And can you say whether both officers, or how many officers responded, and if all of them had their body cameras on?
Sure. All right. We have no documented emotionally disturbed for this individual. So we've never had a documentation of him having any emotional disturbed problems. We have responded in the past, complaints of harassment that the super has filed against him. He was arrested in the building back in January for breaking a window on the 4th floor.
And what about
One officer, the discharging officer, had his body-worn camera on him. The other officer did not have his body-worn camera on, and that's all part of our investigation.
And was it the same officer who fired the taser who also discharged his weapon?
Yes, it was. Same officer fired both the taser and the firearm.
Have you seen the body camera footage?
Yes, I have.
And it shows that what you described, him jumping back up, grabbing the broom handle, et cetera?
Yes, jumping up, screaming, and charging at the officers as the officers are backing out of the apartment into the hallway. Rocco.
Can you explain how this played out in terms of actual time? How many seconds, et cetera?
It was approximately 1 minute and 9 seconds. They had conversation with him in the hallway. At that point, when they discharged a taser to the point of firearms discharge is approximately 10 seconds.
And do both officers have CIT training, and is it clear why the other one was not wearing his camera?
Both officers have CIT training. The other officer had docked his camera before leaving the station house and did not take it back out. I mean, that'll be part of our investigation, is why he didn't take it back out.
Are you going to be able to release any of the body cam footage, and do you have any release?
We will be in consultation with Darcel Clark in the Bronx District Attorney's Office. The Commissioner will have that conversation, and then he'll make that final determination of when and if we're going to release.
Chief, is there a question about the effectiveness of the taser in this case?
The taser hit him, he went down. But once you stop hitting the charge on the taser, the possibility of jumping back up, it can happen. So that's what happened. He charged, he went down flat. Once the charge is released, he jumped immediately back up.
The only
Good.
criminal complaints against him, the only criminal history that he had was this complaint from the super and having a broken window.
That was the one back in January, and then harassment, a couple of harassment complaints that the super filed against him, I believe back in May of last year.
But no other criminal history.
That's the other criminal history that we have with him. At this location, he has other criminal history.
And it looks like 2 going around.
Yeah.
Chief, is it clear why he's there? What is he suffering from?
Again, that I can't go into. That's, that HIPAA laws involve that.
Chief, can you describe what
It's a single room.
Can you clarify whether the officer who discharged his firearm is the same one who had his camera on?
Yes, it's a single room occupancy, so it's just a one studio apartment. He's right in the hallway at the door when he gets hit, and the officer who fired his gun is the officer that had the body-worn camera on.
Can you say anything about their ranks or time on the service?
We can get you that on background.
Would you consider it, is it too early to say if it's justified or not?
It appears to be justified. They're coming at him. This guy's charging at him with a knife in one hand, a stick in the other, screaming at them in a confined space. Again, I say this quite often. Officers have to make a decision in a matter of seconds, and that's what happened here. It escalated very quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.